Joining our closing bell exchange right now here at Post 9, Chris Cordero. He's with Region Atlantic. He's the Chief Investment Officer there. Peter Costa of Empire Executions is the president of said company. He's at Post 9 as well. And Rick Santelli holds no executive positions at the CME in Chicago. Thank you guys for joining us today. Chris, I'm going to start with you. The dollar, there was a time when, all things went back to the dollar, whether it was a move in interest rates or the equity market or gold or whatever it is. Is that still the case right now in your view? I mean, bearing in mind what the president said today about wanting a stronger dollar.
Yeah, well, the dollar is extremely important, because if we have a weaker dollar, then that means that something that I'm looking out for is inflation may really spike up in 2018, because if we have a weaker dollar, it's going to cost us more to buy all the foreign goods that we really like.
The reason I ask, though, is we've had the dollar index has been setting lows, 3-year lows right now, but yet the inflationary implications of that are lost in the treasury markets because interest rates have been multi-year low as well.
Right, and so that's where you have it. To get a stronger dollar, we've got to increase rates. That will keep the dollar going. So what this really spells out to me is it's trouble for bond investors. Either way you go, bond investors are not going to be happy, because if we have a weak dollar and inflation is there, bond investors aren't happy. You've got rising rates, and long-term bond investors aren't going to be happy. So that's my biggest fear is for bond investors in this dollar market.
Rick, you want to speak to that?
Well, everything that Chris says makes sense. I mean, if we purchase less, that's why a strong dollar, a strong currency for any country, if you think about it from the people's standpoint, it's always the best thing. They could buy the most. So if we're buying less and Europe's buying more, the euro may have less of an inflation problem, the U.S. may have more. But with regard to interest rates, the pieces just don't align right, because monetary policies put everything in kind of a shake-up, snow globe sort of fashion. Everything's mixed up. What Chris said should make sense, right? But here we sit, 1 basis point under the high yield from 2017, while the dollar continues to fall. It settled at 102.20 for 2016. We're down 14% from that. And even though there was a bounce today because of the verbiage attached to it, that could be written off as anecdotal with a lot of the computer programs that trade off of news headlines. In the end, I think the dollar's going to stay on the weaker side. The euro's going to stay on the stronger side. Interest rates move up, but in a tame fashion. I think the problem still lies in Europe and Japan. I think Europe's going to have a real problem because they are way behind buying the insurance they need with respect to raising rates and dramatically reducing the balance sheet. But I think the further we get in this process and the more central banks that go in a less stimulative direction, it's at that time I think that Chris will see that the relationship gets more back to normal and interest rates will rise more rapidly.
And Peter, of course, a lower dollar as it continues lower has not hurt the equity markets as we continue to set records here.
Not at all. And I think some of that is, I actually think that there is European money moving into the U.S. based on the fact that they can buy more with a euro in the U.S. So I think that there is some European investment coming in. It's been going on for probably about 3 or 4 months. I don't think that's the reason the market's up where it is, but I do think it's an underpinning.
What do you think about the Dow again, the outperformer relative to the other averages? Is it just a quirk of earnings? It's led today by Boeing again, not that it had earnings, but 3M. Some results there. What do you think about that?
Well, my bigger concern is the divergence between the transports and the industrials. I know that that's old school, and we've gone over this before, but I definitely...
It's still important, though.
It is, I do think it's still important, even though the one index may not carry as much weight as the other. Having that kind of divergence, especially what you've seen yesterday and today, to me, all right, granted it was earnings related, but earnings don't hit the transport market that hard. I think there's something more going on here, and I do think that diversion is going to show up.
Although the airlines were hit yesterday,
yes.
We talked that United Airlines was going to be opening up new routes here and maybe starting a fare war.
Yeah, there was reasons behind it, but is it 190 points on the on the transports, 190 today? That's a lot of movement on the downside.